Welcome to the design and implementation of student registration app for Gospel Computer Solution, an IT firm located in Lagos, Nigeria. Now, the first thing we are going to do is we are going to design the database. So we right click on Management Studio and then we click on Open. So we connect.
Okay.
Record. So now we have databases folder. Right click on databases. I'll say new database.
Okay.
So I'm going to create a new database called GPEX-DB.
It's Gospel.
Hmm?
Gospel.
I know, I want to make it GPEX-DB.
Okay.
Owner SA.
Okay.
Okay, let's make it Gospel DB.
Okay.
God's will. So SA. We click OK.
Okay.
So now we will expand God's will DB. We are going to first create the first table we are going to create is going to be the student biodata table.
Okay.
Now this personal identity stuff, we'll call it biodata.
Okay.
So we are going to have biodata ID.
Okay.
That type for that will be big. Okay.
Yes.
Set primary key. Then we are going to make it identity.
Yes.
So we change identity specification. We change its identity from no to yes. Okay. We are going to have the surname of the student. The data type will be NBACA50. That will be compulsory.
Okay.
We are going to have the first name of the student. That one too will be NBACA50 and will also be compulsory. Then we are going to have other names.
Okay.
Other names, let's make it NVACA 101. That one will not be compulsory, okay?
Okay. That's an easy one.
Because can have more than one name. One other names.
Okay.
That is why.
Okay.
Contact address. Contact address, the data type will be n text. Let's make it compulsory. Date of birth. Date of birth. Date time. Let's make it date time 27. Let's make it compulsory.
27 is fine.
I think doesn't have the time portion.
Okay.
Then we are going to have gender ID. That one will be int. We also make it compulsory. Then we are going to have state of origin ID. The data type of that one too will be int. Thank you. State of origin ID. The data type will be int. We'll make it compulsory. Phone number. End back at 50. Let's make it compulsory. Email address. End back at 50. Let's make it compulsory. Facebook ID. End back at 50. That one will not be compulsory.
Okay.
Now let's save this table. When I click, you say save table.
Okay.
Save this table as student bio data. Okay, there is still something we missed out. Okay.
Okay.
Let me call it picture. Let's make this end back at max. This will not be compulsory. Now we are going to create two related tables, gender and state of origin.
Yes.
New table. State of origin ID. That type will be int. Let's make it primary key. Let's make it identity. No, let's, instead of state of origin, let's call it state ID.
Okay.
So then we are going to have state name.
Okay.
End back at 50.
It doesn't matter what you put there in these other ones.
Just watch. So when I click, we save. We save these as states. Okay. And then, yeah, this identity. When I click on state name, go to indexes, keys, add, we change the type to unique key, participating column, state name. You are quite conversant with, we are quite conversant with this, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So now, let's do our first relationship.
Okay.
We right click on database diagram, install diagram support.
Okay.
We click yes in the dialog that appears. And then we go back again, we say new database diagram.
Okay.
And then we add the two tables that we already have inside the database diagram, and we click. Then we drag from state ID and we drop on state of origin ID. We are able to do that because the data types of the two participating columns is the same, is int. Their names might not be the same.
Okay.
So we right click here and then we say save diagram 0 and then we click OK.
Okay.
The following tables will be saved to your database. Do you want to continue? A resounding yes.
Okay.
And then we go back to our table again. we need gender table, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So what do we do? Table, new table. So you have gender ID, which is int, and then you have gender name, which is what? N 50. Set primary key. Identity specification, you change its identity from no to what?
Yes.
Yes. Make gender name compulsory. We are going to save this table as genders. Okay? We click OK. So now we right click, we go to indexing stroke keys again. We click on add, isn't it? We change the type to what? Unique key. Gender ID, we change it to the percentage column in the unique key to what? Gender name, isn't it?
Yes.
We click close, we save. We right click, we save. Now we go back to database diagrams. We already have a database diagram. Let's use it. So we right click on it, we say add table.
Okay.
We add genders, click, then we bring this guy to this side.
Okay.
Then we drag from gender ID and drop on gender ID. The following table will be saved to your database. Do you want to continue? Yes. So now we are done with that. Now we go back to our tables. We are going to create another table.
Okay.
New table. Let's call it educational record ID. Okay, let's call it education record ID. The data type is big int.
Okay.
So education record data ID. Education record ID. So and if you look at this student biodata, the primary key is a column called biodata ID. So we are going to put that biodata ID here. Big it. Are you following?
I'm still trying to. You already have it here. You still want to have it here.
Because it's going to be, it's just like the way I have state.
Okay.
In state, and I bring state. I have state inside this table, so that to show which state the student comes from. So this record, I want to know which student has this particular educational record.
Okay, that means all the information from that place you want it to be shown on that.
Yes, just watch.
Okay.
So now instead of that, what you have here, you are going to have school name. You are going to have name of institution. Name of what? Institution. Let's make that n back 300.
Okay.
Oh, let's make it n back 350. Then we are going to have from. From will be date, time, 27. We're also going to have to, instead of this to, why not let us have start date and end date?
Okay.
Start date and what? End date. This one too will be date type 27.
Okay.
Then why not have qualification obtained?
Okay.
Qualification. We're also going to have something like qualification obtained ID. Yeah. That type of that will be it. Now we make education record ID primary key. We're also going to make it identity. Then let's save this table. Student education histories. Let's make this compulsory, End date will not be compulsory because the student might still be attending this school. Qualification obtained ID, let's make it let's make it compulsory. Then we save the table. And then we are going to have another table called qualifications. So we right click table. So we are going to have qualification ID. The data type is it. Then we are going to have qualification name. Excuse me, qualification name. The data type will be NBACA 50. Qualification ID will be primary key. Qualification ID will be identity. Will be what?
Identity.
Will be identity. Qualification name will be compulsory. We are going to save this table as education. Let's just save it as qualifications, okay? As what? Qualifications. So we click OK. Now let's create a unique key on qualification name. We change the type here to what? Unique key. Participating column, we change to what? Qualification name. Thank you. Then we save. We right click, we save. At this point, we are going to add another database diagram. This time around, the focal point of our database diagram is student education histories. Okay. Now, because we have biodata ID there, we are going to add student biodata.
Okay.
I hope I'm communicating, sir.
Yes.
And because we have qualification obtained ID, I'm going to add what? Qualifications table. So we have them this way. We drag from this primary key. So we drag from this primary key to this guy that is not primary key. We click OK, click OK. Then we drag from this guy that is primary key as qualification ID. We drop on qualification obtained ID. All we need to do is to ensure that the data types of the two participating column is the same. Names might be different. So what do? We right click and we do what? Say save. So now we have two database diagrams in our database. The following tables will be saved to your database. You want to continue? Yes. At this point, let's right click and say close all documents. Now this family record, in case of emergency, is appropriately called next of kin.
Okay.
Do you agree?
Yes.
So before we create that, let's right click on tables and say refresh, so that we can see all the tables in our database. Okay. So now let's right click here, we say new table. So we have next of kin ID. So this next of kin ID, the data type will be big int. And because the next of kin is about a student, we are going to have biodata ID again. Of course, that should tell you that relationship wants to happen again. Do you agree?
Yes.
So we have name of next of kin. That's what we are going to say here.
Okay.
Name of next of kin. Let's make it NVACA 250. Now we want to know the relationship of the next of kin. We want to know the relationship of the next of kin, whether it's the father or mother or whatever. So we are going to have a table called relationship ID. We are going to have a column called relationship ID. Okay? So we have next of kin, phone number, NVACA 50. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
Next of kin, email, next of kin, contact, address, NVACA 50. No, this end text and be compulsory. Next of kin email, NVACA 50 compulsory. Next of kin phone number, NVACA 50 compulsory. Relationship ID compulsory. Name of next of kin compulsory. Biodata ID compulsory. Even this compulsory. All the columns are compulsory. This primary key, and at the same time will be identity. Okay?
Yes.
So save. Next. Okay.
Yes.
We need to create another table for relationship. Hmm? Okay.
Okay, sir.
New table. Relationship ID. That type is it. Hmm?
Yes, sir.
Are we recording? Yes. Relationship name. End back at 50. Hmm?
Yes, sir.
So set primary key. Now let's save this. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
As relationships. Hmm?
Like there's only the one in this house. Okay.
Relationships. Now let's create unique key or relationship name. So we click add, we change the type to what? Unique key. We change this to relationship name. Hmm?
Okay.
And then we say what? Close. Save. Then we go again. Let's right click on database diagram folder and say refresh. Let's open diagram 1. Oh, diagram 1 is taking a lot of time to open. Finally opened. So let's add a table to diagram 1. And that table is relationships, okay? Now let's take it. No, don't let us do that. Do you want to save change this to the following item? No. Instead, let's add a new database diagram, okay? So we are going to have just 2 columns, nest of kings. Okay, we are going to have student biodata as well. Are you following? And then we are going to have relationships table as well. So we have all this. We are going to change the arrangements of the tables. We are going to bring student biodata here. So let me see. So I can drag and drop here. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
What again? I can take this relationship ID and drop here. Yes or no?
Yes.
So easy does it. Right click, save diagram. 2. That's understood, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Say yes. So we are going to have student course registration. Before we do that, let's close all this. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
Right click, close all documents. So new table, course registration ID.
Okay.
Big it. biodata ID. If you notice, biodata appears in almost all the tables. Big it. Course of study ID. That tells you there will be another table for courses of study. Course duration. Course duration. Well, I think all these courses here, they have their standard duration.
Sometimes.
I'm going to remove this. Let's delete that. We'll bring it to another table. Here we are going to have study section ID. Study session ID. That will be it. Then we are going to have private training venue. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
That will be in text, but it will not be compulsory. Then you are going to have private training time. Private training time. Let's just make that one NVACA 50. Okay. Then we are going to have the signature. Let's bring the student signature here. NVACA max. Now, save table 1, student, course, registrations. This will be primary key. It will also be identity. It will also be what? It will also be identity. This will be compulsory. This will be compulsory. This will be compulsory. Signature will be compulsory. And we save again. So now, what do? We need a table for courses of study. So new table. Course of study ID int. Course of study name. Let's call it NVACA 200. Let's say vacant 300. Duration in months. Duration in what?
Months.
The data type for that will be int. Compulsory. Course of study ID. The primary key. Course of study ID will be identity. So save table. Courses of let's just call it school courses. Okay. Have we done a unique key on course of study name? We need to add type unique key courses of study name. Now we need another database diagram. New. I'm going to add student course registration. Then I bring add table. Where is courses of study? School courses. Bam. Close. I bring it here. I bring this one here. Do you agree?
Yes.
Then I need to add student biodata as well.
Okay.
The student biodata. I take this one here, drop it here. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we still need one more table here. Are you following?
Yes.
Now let me show you something that you can do. While we are saving, let's be patient, let it save. So we say yes. Now what I want to show you is that you can create your table from database diagram. So to illustrate that, so now let's create a table from the database diagram. We just say we right click and say new table.
Okay.
So this time around, we are going to call this one study sessions.
Okay.
We click OK, and then we are going to have study session ID. Does that look familiar? What you are seeing here, does it look somehow familiar?
Yes.
Does it look familiar to you?
Yes, it is.
Study session name.
Okay.
Head back at 50. I can make it primary key. Can you see that?
Yes.
I can make this one compulsory. I can right click on that study session ID. I can go to properties. I can make it identity.
Okay.
Now let's right click on study session name. Let's click on indexes stroke keys. At type unique key participating folder study section name. Okay, close. And then Do you know we can do something like this? Drag from this primary key and drop here. Do you
Okay.
agree?
Okay.
Okay. Then you can see, you cannot see this table under list of our tables in Object Explorer, but let's see what happens when we save. The following tables will be saved to your database. We say yes.
Okay.
So after saying yes, okay, let's also add another column here called time.
Okay.
Let's just make it 10 back at 15. Let's save again.
Okay.
Now, let's go to this column, add a column. We right click, we say insert column.
Okay.
We are going to add another column called is private student.
Okay.
Now this is column. The data type, this is where we change it. The data type will be bit. And you are already familiar with Boolean data type in C#. Yes or no?
Yes.
True or false?
True or false.
So in
Okay.
SQL Server, it is called bit.
Bit. Okay.
So now, we right click and then we say save diagram 3.
Okay.
Then there is still something we are going to do here.
Okay.
This course of study, let's add another column here. Insert column. Course fee.
Okay.
Course fee. Do you understand? So this course fee, the data type will be decimal 18,2. The precision is 18, the scale is 2. Okay? Are you following?
Yes, sir.
Let's right click, let's save diagram 3.
Okay.
We say yes. Okay. The database diagram is becoming so much. Okay, it's not so much. Can I add another table? Yes. I right click and say new table. I'm going to call this table. I'm going to call this table student course payments. Okay? So we click OK. We are going to have payment ID. This will be big int. We are going to have biodata ID. This is to represent the student that is making the payments.
Okay.
So the data type will be big int. You want to know what course of study are they making payment for?
Okay.
Course of study ID. I think that should be big int too. Let me see. Course of study ID. Properties. It's int. So this will be int. Remember, the data type should be the same.
Sorry.
It is int there.
Okay. You said like big int can contains
More than 3 billion.
billions. Why
But ordinary int cannot contain up to 3 billion. 3 billion. It's just slightly more than 2 billion. No. You are talking of maybe where you are the number of rows now in the table. So if for example, if my payment ID is int, that means I cannot. That means and payment ID is going to be primary key. So that means I cannot have up to 3 billion payment records in student cost payment table. If I should make that payment ID int. So but by making it big int, we've guaranteed that we can have more than 3 billion records. Do you get it?
Yes.
So now let's continue. So we have cost of study ID. We have payment date. So we have payment date. This payment date, let's make it date time.
Yes.
We are going to have amount paid. This amount paid will be decimal 18.2. Then we are going to have the balance. The balance too will be decimal 18.2. Are you following?
Yes.
Then let's bring in another column here. Let's bring in cost fee here again. Decimal 18.2. Are you following?
Yes.
So let's set primary key. This compulsory, this compulsory, this compulsory, this compulsory. In fact, everything will be compulsory. So right click on payment properties, payment ID. We make it identity. That's understood.
Yes.
We drag data. We are going to drag from it and drop on this by data ID. Are you following?
Yes.
We are also going to drag course of study ID and drop on this course of study ID. I think we are good. Let's do save all. That would be better. Now, we have finished designing the database. Let's copy the name of the database. So let's say rename. Copy. Now let's close. database.
Okay.
So right click on Radzi. Say run as administrator. So in user account control, we have clicked yes. So we are going to click on new. Going to be BLAZOR. Let's make it WebAssembly. So let's leave the theme as default. So let's call the name of the app God's Will Edu Record. Now we are going to save the app on our C drive at the location C/God's Will Edu Record. Then we click on create. Now we close this dialog. We click on data, then we click on name. We choose SQL Server as our data source. Our data source name will become data. Server is dot, which means this computer or local host. Database name, I think, is God's Will DB, isn't it? Username is SA. What is password? Uppercase A, isn't it?
Yes.
No underscore.
No underscore.
Then the next thing we are going to do is we are going to infer schema. So now that we have inferred schema, let's generate pages for prod operations. We are Nigerians. Our date format is dd/2 big M's. Let's enable optimistic concurrency. Let's enable export to Excel and CSV. Let's enable search as we type. And let's click finish. Let's click on my applications. Let's double click on God's Will Edu Record. Now let's click run. So the application has started. So the app is in the process of loading.
Okay.
So our app has been created. We'll continue with the lecture tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks for watching.